All right, it is a frantic week in the 49ers facility, not just because of the injury situation. I'm sure that it's frantic in the Rams facility as well, and they're very, very healthy. But this is a Thursday game, and that means that today, Tuesday, teams have to combine Wednesday and Thursday into their schedules, typical Wednesdays and Thursdays, because normally you've got Tuesday as a player's day off. Then you show up into the building on Wednesday. You do your practice preparation day one. Practice preparation day two is Thursday. But the problem is that the game's on Thursday this week. So there was no players' day off on Tuesday. Yesterday was the day where the 49ers had to reset. 50 players came into the facility for body maintenance. Today they're going to be out there for practice, and they're going to do the Wednesday portion of the schedule in the first half of the day, and the Thursday portion of the schedule a little bit after noon. And then they'll be hopefully all caught up. Tomorrow's like Friday. You're going to have to combine Friday and Saturday, I guess, as well, because the game is on Thursday. All right. Long story short, 49ers getting braced for this game on Thursday against the Rams. John Lynch spoke about the very quick nature of the schedule just now on KMBR. And he said that Brock Purdy is going to be listed as questionable, at least on the 49ers internal sheet. He is listed as questionable. Ricky Pearsall as well. The Purdy quote from John Lynch in response to a question regarding if the 49ers would do any more imaging on his toe, which popped up as sore after the game on Sunday, was, quote, "We will take every precaution to make sure Brock's all right. I think he is. Now it's just a matter of can he turn it around on a short week." Though Lynch made the point that Purdy practiced all week last week without any ill effects, and that the soreness came up after the game. Games are different than practice, and you can't really test to see if an injury and its recovery will hold up until a player is put through actual game rigors. And I think that's what happened here with Brock Purdy. They said he's feeling good at practice, but you're not quite going at that 110% speed with that intensity that you have on Sundays. So they threw him out there during the game, and obviously some soreness resulted from the game. Lynch doesn't think that there's any new structural damage, ligament damage. That's what turf toe is. It's a damage to the ligament there in the toe. He just thinks that this is standard post-game soreness. I think the 49ers probably have already done some imaging for John Lynch to be confident in that. But when it comes to soreness, that can also affect your play. And the fact that this game is on Thursday instead of Sunday gives Brock Purdy less time to recover from it. So this decision might go all the way up until Thursday. Remember, the last time that Brock Purdy was injured for a Thursday game was his second career start, where the 49ers ended up clinching the division against the Seattle Seahawks back in 2022. Purdy broke his rib on a scramble play against Tom Brady and the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. That was his first career start. And then it didn't seem like he was going to be able to play on Thursday against the Seahawks because he didn't attempt to pass in practice all week long. Kyle Shanahan even went into the locker room during pregame warmups up in Seattle, ready to change the 49ers opening plays because he thought that there's no way that Brock is playing. Probably a pain-killing injection shot took hold at that point, and Brock Purdy was able to grit his teeth and tough it out and head on out there and help the 49ers beat Seattle to win the division in 2022. But that's how intense these turnarounds to Thursday can be if the injury happened on Sunday, or in this case, the soreness originated on Sunday for Brock Purdy. There's not a lot of time to be ready for the Thursday night game. And often it's going to be this frenetic rush that may not be determined until very, very close to kickoff. Ricky Pearsall might be in the same boat, although something tells me that Pearsall might be a little less likely to play than Brock Purdy. Who knows? I'm speculating at that point. But John Lynch today said that Ricky Pearsall will be in that questionable category. Remember that Pearsall complained of some knee instability, but the ACL is not the question here. That Shanahan said minor PCL is the 49ers guessed, and that happens when you bang your knee really hard against the turf. You can hurt the PCL. Last year, Christian McCaffrey hurt his PCL against Buffalo, hit his knee even harder against the turf, and that put him out for several weeks. They think that this with Pearsall is much more minor. I think it's actually the opposite knee of the one that he was complaining about last week that caused him to miss practice on Wednesday. Either way, that threatens to further compromise the 49ers offense that's also dealing with a banged up Jawan Jennings right now. Jennings has got the ankle, the shoulder, and speaking of a rib and a rib injury, he suffered one when he caught that 2-point conversion attempt against Jacksonville the other day. So that's where the 49ers are at right now. If you want to see the big picture roster view, I will be happy to oblige you. This is it right here. Purdy, we could take Mac Jones off the injury list, by the way. John Lynch said that he's good to go. Mac Jones would have been a full participant in practice yesterday had there been a practice. There wasn't one. Brock Purdy would have not practiced yesterday had there been a practice. But again, this was the day after the game. Today might be a little bit more telling. I'm going to be out at the facility today for several straight hours. First in the locker room in the early afternoon, and then the 49ers will take the practice field at 5:10. They might take the actual Levi's Stadium field. It's still early enough in the year to where it's light out at 5:10, but it might be getting a little bit darker, and they don't have lights on their practice field. So unless they have ported lights in, I don't know what they're going to do later in the year when they have had these practices later in the day because they want the players to get more sleep for recovery right now. They practice later in the day. But later in the year when they've faced this situation, the 49ers have actually practiced under the stadium lights. And it's just going to be a light walk-through session for San Francisco, at least walk-through type of speed, so they can make sure that they perpetuate the body recovery over the course of this week. So questionable for Purdy and Pearsall. Lynch, one more quote. He said on top of listing Brock Purdy is questionable, he said, I think that's a true reflection of where he's at right now. A lot of the things that we talked about over the course of the past day or so since the 49ers lost that game to Jacksonville, John Lynch relayed on KMBR. He said there were a lot of uncharacteristic things in that game, obviously referring to the 49ers' 6 drops against Jacksonville. But one thing that did come up, and this is something that I know we've talked about a lot, but I think that this puts it really, really bluntly. The 49ers run game is not where it needs to be right now. There are a multitude of reasons for that, but a very big reason, one of the reasons that they at least lose their margin for error, and one of the reasons that is very statistically documented is this one right here. The 49ers on the ground are averaging only 3.3 yards per carry. It's one of the lowest figures in the league. Without George Kittle on the field over the past 2 seasons, they've averaged only 3.3 yards per carry. So they don't have George Kittle out there right now. He's only been out there for, a drive or two for San Francisco before he went out of that Seattle game with the hamstring injury. With Kittle on the field, they're a 5 yards per carry team. Without George Kittle, it drops down to 3.3. The Kittle on and off splits for the 49ers run game have been amazingly disparate, essentially since George Kittle joined the 49ers in 2017. It might have taken a little while for him to have this true of a black and white impact on what the 49ers are doing running wise, but it didn't take long. And the reason is simple. The 49ers are built on pre-snap deception at the line of scrimmage. They can pass out of running formations. They could run out of passing formations. They put defenses into compromised positions because of their ability to be so versatile. And George Kittle is one of the most versatile chess pieces in all of football. The combo blocks that he executes with the tackles, either Trent Williams on the left side or Colton McKivitz on the right side, are deadly because defenses aren't sure if he's going to actually block or if he's going to go out for a pass pattern. I think that the return of George Kittle, which probably is going to happen week 6 against Tampa Bay. He has to be on injured reserve for at least one more game by rule. But that return is going to be extremely exciting for the 49ers because not only will you be repairing George Kittle with Trent Williams on the left side, but you'll also be pairing George Kittle with a player who is the NFL's top-graded right tackle as we speak. Yes, that is Colton McKivitz. That's actually a thing. Colton McKivitz right now is PFF's number 1 graded pass-blocking right tackle in the NFL. He's allowed only 6 pressures through 4 games. He trails only Penei Sewell of that ferocious Lions offensive line in overall grade. So pass blocking grade right here. McKivitz, Taylor Moton, Lane Johnson. McKivitz is in the top half of run blocking right tackles as well. So George Kittle is an ambidextrous player. He can line up on the left to combo block with Trent Williams. He could line up on the right to combo block with Colton McKivitz, who's having a resurgent year. And, I've taken a lot of heat over the past couple of years just for pointing out that Colton McKivitz is improving. This shows how irrational some of the 49ers noise out there can be. It shows that you shouldn't take a lot of people seriously when they talk because they wanted Colton McKivitz off this football team. Well, congratulations. If you wanted Colton McKivitz off this football team, you would have booted the top graded right tackle in all football. One of the most valuable positions, a position that where talent is in scarcity. You would have booted him right off the football team. Trent Williams, too, is playing solid football this year. Williams is number 5 in the tackle grades. That's amongst left tackles. And Colton McKivitz is number 1 amongst right tackles. The problem for the 49ers offensive line has come at left guard, where Ben Barch is on injured reserve and Connor Colby has given up 10 pressures over the course of the past 2 weeks. Trent is having to pick up a lot of slack there at the left guard position. Jake Brendel and Dominic Pooney are playing average football right now. They haven't been great, but they haven't been terrible. They're ranked right in the middle of the pack in some of the metrics that we look at. Where the 49ers have been bad is at that left guard position. And then Colby, to his credit, suffered a groin injury a couple days before his first career start. I think for the 49ers offensive line, the key is that they just can't have one massive glaring weakness because opponents are going to target that glaring weakness and attack it and go after it. And then the entire line has to operate in unison. So you're going to have guys shuffling around. Trent Williams is going to look worse. Jake Brendel's going to look worse. Everybody's going to look worse if there's one spot that is truly, truly lagging behind. So they have to repair that. And then for the run game to actually take off the way that the 49ers needed to, they have to address this split right here. And Jeff Deeney does a good job of illustrating it for us on Pro Football Focus. George Kittle needs to be back. And, I think by extension, that can also help Connor Colby because you can stretch those outside zone plays further out to the perimeter with George Kittle leading the way, blocking in that hammerhead helmet. And, then you're less reliant on really solid blocks on the inside, although those are always important. You can't have the play blown up on the inside, but it all goes hand in hand. It's all connected. And the 49ers are just one of those teams that if one thing in that run game is not where it needs to be, this run game can really, really see a big tumble in efficiency. The good news is that when everything does come together, they've been one of the best, if not the best running team in football. It's them and the Ravens over the course of the past few seasons. And it's one of those things where San Francisco just needs to have the personnel pieces in place. Losing George Kittle was a massive crisis in week 1. It still is, I think, truly remarkable that the 49ers were able to beat the Seahawks. Brock Purdy led them from behind against the Seahawks on that game-winning drive. Such a good defense on the road. It was remarkable they were able to do that without George Kittle. It was remarkable that Mac Jones then took the reins and was able to lead the 49ers to 3-0 with another division win over the Arizona Cardinals. They blew a game against Jacksonville. That was another really good defense, though. It happens that they dropped a bunch of passes. They turned the ball over too much. They've got to move on the next week. Bottom line is that this team is 3-1. And I thought entering the season that a 3-3 start was probably the likeliest path for the 49ers. George is going to be back for week 6 against Tampa Bay, so maybe that will tilt the scales in the 49ers' favor against the Bucs. At least I think he's going to be back in week 6 against Tampa Bay, but there's a high possibility the 49ers lose the next 2. I mean, I don't sugarcoat things for you guys. I tell it how it is. Big deal. They'd be 3-3 with theoretically guys coming back and then in position to hit the softer underbelly of this schedule. That's really how we charted that this might go at the start of the season. So I don't know why everybody would act very shocked after the 49ers won really 3 games by the skin of their teeth and then lost one by a very narrow margin. I don't know why everybody would act shocked that they would lose 2 road games against really good opponents in the Rams and the Bucs. Maybe they can find a way to steal one of the next 2 and be 4-2. That'd be like socking more money into the bank. But you've got to be realistic. The 49ers are really young on defense. They've lost Nick Bosa, and the offense is really, really beaten up right now. This is just a rough stretch for the 49ers. That they aren't running the football because George Kittle's not there and other stuff is happening. They haven't delivered the explosive pass rate that they need to open up the run. They just aren't right now in their fully equipped state. And they hope that by later October, early November, they will be in that fully equipped state. And you got to knock on wood for that. And at that point, I think that the 49ers can really rip off a string of more dominant wins. That they showed that they could win ugly in 3 straight games against the Seahawks and then against the Saints and then the Cardinals. But this team right now is not suited for running away with football games. I think that unless they get some really, really nice turnover luck, and they've had none of that so far this year, right? But unless they get something that really tilts the game unnaturally in their favor, they're not the 2023 49ers right now from a health perspective for sure. And because of that, the margins are really narrow. Some losses are almost inevitable mathematically, as we saw this past week against Jacksonville. They got lucky to escape the Arizona game because they faced long odds to win that game late. But the margins are very narrow, and it makes stuff like special teams all the more important. You can't just blow 5+ expected points on special teams like the 49ers have in 2 of their games. It cost them once against Jacksonville. It did not cost them against Seattle. They were able to find a way to overcome all those Jake Moody struggles against the Seattle Seahawks in week 1. So to me, that's the way that I look at this. I think that's the realistic way to look at this. I think way too many people start as homers about this, and they think the 49ers should be blowing everybody out, and then they turn into completely irrational critics because they're just emotional. They go from homerism to excessive criticism, and they swing wildly between the two, even though the football team is 3-1. It's like, get a grip. The football team is 3-1. Even if the football team is 3-2, even if the football team is 3-3, this is a tough league. That is not the end of the world, especially since we projected 3-3 entering the season. So the wild emotional vacillations from side to side, at some point they have to stop because they're just so exciting. I mean, I wrote this on Twitter, X, whatever you want to call it, yesterday. A small subset of loud 49ers voices on social media are laughably predictable. They recycle the QB is terrible takes after every loss. There's no grasp of football ups, downs, and nuance. No wonder these people have been wrong about Brock Purdy dozens of times already, and they're going to be wrong countless more times. It's as simple as that. Another thing I said is that 3-3 was a realistic expectation for the 49ers to start the season. Why then are online meltdowns coming in at 3-1? I mean, 3-1, considering that 3-3 was I think any rational person talking about the 49ers entering this season was saying 3-3 was a very realistic possibility, maybe even an expectation. For me, it was an expectation. 3-1 should not be causing meltdowns given that context. This prisoner of the moment stuff is absolutely insane. Bigger picture, too, quarterback one ranks number 8 in efficiency. That's Brock Purdy, ranks number 8. I mean, you would think by some of the discussions this week that he ranks number 27. He ranks number 8, despite playing with turf toe against 2 top-tier defenses, Seattle and then Jacksonville. Jacksonville's ranked number 2 in the entire NFL. And Mac Jones, the QB2, ranks number 18 in efficiency, so middle of the pack, better than many starters. So you've got 2 quarterbacks who are performing at a relatively high level for their assigned roles, QB 1 and 2. And the team is sitting there at 3-1, despite the fact they have all these injuries, but with projections to get healthier moving forward into the season. It is impossible to take those who overreact seriously. It really is. Given the facts, those who overreact are not tethered in any sort of truth regarding the 49ers right now. Now, back to fixing the run game and taking a look at where the 49ers offense is right now from a performance perspective. Mike, nice enough to just send this. We've got EPA per rush on the x-axis and EPA per dropback, so pass on the y-axis. You want to be further to the right and further up. So like Buffalo is a team in the upper right corner. That's great. Look where the 49ers are at. Upper left corner. And this is actually really interesting to me because San Francisco is in the same spot as the Seattle Seahawks. If you can see there, Seattle's logo is right under the SF logo. And you know who the coordinator there is? Clint Kubiak. And we saw that in week 1, that Seattle was struggling to run the ball the way they wanted to against the 49ers. But Sam Darnold has been very good passing the football so far this year. And the 49ers have gotten efficient quarterback play as well. This includes the interceptions that a lot of people seem to freak out about. The 49ers are still generating efficiency per drop back. They're not the most efficient pass team, but they're one of the most efficient in the NFL. But they are in this quadrant that indicates that they have not been good running the ball. So again, you go back to what our good friend Jeff Deeney said. Kittle on the field, 4.9 yards per carry. No Kittle, 3.3 yards per carry. That's one of the things the 49ers need to see change. They need to see George Kittle back out there. And if they continue, they're efficient passing wise, but they haven't quite been explosive passing wise. They delivered their best explosive pass rate of the season against Jacksonville, which was a step in the right direction. If they can continue delivering explosives without turning the ball over, that will naturally open up more running room, and it should coincide with a potential week 6 return for George Kittle and help move the 49ers to where they need to be. That's right here. They need to be in the upper right quadrant of a graph like this. Mike has got more stuff for me. It's like, you have to show this. This is really interesting. But before I put it up on the screen, I need to see what it is. 49ers drive summary against Jacksonville. This is from SF Data Niners. SF Data Niners doing good work again. They opened that account early, I think, during the playoffs of the 2023 season, January 2024. It's when SF Data Niners started their account. And I don't know who it is. It's a faceless account, but whoever it is does a really, really good job covering San Francisco from an analytics statistical perspective. All right, so Mike said show this. I'm going to trust Mike. We're going to put it up on the screen. The 49ers beat themselves, says SF Data Niners, settling for 2 field goals on goal-to-go situations and committing 3 turnovers in their own half. Okay. So anything that's labeled in green right here as a drive is a touchdown. Anything that is in a yellow circle ends in a field goal. Blue looks like punt. And then the reddish shade, so pink for purple, whatever you say that is fumble, and red is interception. So the turnovers in their own half were brutal. You could see here the fumble. That was one of them was the Luke Farrell fumble. I think that was this one down here, right shy the 50-yard line. The other was the strip sack from Eric Armstead, where they overwhelmed the right side of the offensive line. Purdy, obviously, threw the interception in San Francisco's own territory. That was tough. And then the other interception was in Jacksonville territory, so that one wasn't as damaging. But you're also giving up a real shot at points there, and that was the one that bounced off of Christian McCaffrey. And if you look back at that play, I didn't actually hear Kyle Shanahan say this because I was in the locker room. I need to go back and listen to his press conference, but Kyle, I think it was Kyle who said it, that he thought Christian McCaffrey might have been able to score on that play. Maybe it was Christian who said it. I'm going to go back and listen, but unfortunately, Christian wasn't able to catch it. It was a very high degree of difficulty throw, as you can see on that play. Brock Purdy was backing away to his right. He had two pass rushers in his face. He had to fade away as he was throwing it, and he had to get it over the first two levels of the defense in front of the third level of the defense, and he almost dropped it in there perfectly. Christian said that he should have caught it. I think if Christian had another chance at it, he probably would have caught it, just because we know who Christian McCaffrey is. He adjusted from two-handed catch to one-handed attempt in the middle of his jump, and he wasn't able to quite get it. And the double whammy of bad luck there was that Christian then batted the ball backwards, and that led to the interception. It was a lucky interception for Jacksonville. If that ball is a straight drop, if it just tips off his hand and then falls to the ground, it's not an interception, and the 49ers live to fight another day. That came after the spectacular downfield throw to Ricky Pearsall. Adjustment for Pearsall. That ball was, I think, intentionally underthrown. It has to be put in a spot where Pearsall can run to it and the defensive back can't. Literally, the play after that 30-plus yard gain to Ricky, we see the interception off of Christian McCaffrey's hands. This is where football analysis from a lot of the media is so lacking. If McCaffrey catches that ball, would have been a spectacular play on both ends from Purdy and McCaffrey. Really difficult throw. McCaffrey might be running for a touchdown. Almost certainly the 49ers score some points on that drive. They probably win the game, right? Because Jacksonville doesn't get the ball. They don't get game control. I mean, that's the difference between winning and losing. There's several plays that could have swung this game in a different direction, but that's one of the plays that could have swung it. All of a sudden, the narrative on Brock Purdy is completely different. So how can you tell me that you're an intelligent observer of the game and give a blanket statement in the negative on Brock Purdy? Like a blanket statement, be so far into the negative camp when literally an inch difference on a throw to Christian McCaffrey would have led to a catch and given a positive blanket assertion. You can't say that that's intelligent analysis if you're so hard in one direction, yet 1 inch on the football field or one catch on the football field would make you go so hard in the other direction. There's something wrong with your take. It means that you're too artificially, falsely on one side to either get clicks, to get attention, to soothe yourself emotionally. I don't know what the reason is for every person, but the thing is, I see it from people covering the team. I think a lot of times it's clicks, whereas the truth is always something that's in gray area in the NFL. There are great plays, there are worse plays, there are plays that in a violent game with people hitting each other aren't quite perfect, but players make work. And you basically have to take the aggregate of everything, not just over one game, but over several games, and find the truth in that. Like, who performs throughout this mess positively more often? And that's where Brock Purdy's been really good over the course of his NFL career. He's been the most efficient quarterback in the league since he joined in 2022. He's still been top 10, top 8 this year through 2 starts against 2 defenses in a game where he wasn't fully in sync and in rhythm. It seemed he was just a little bit off, on some of those throws against Jacksonville coming off of the turf toe, and then he felt soreness after the game. So if you can't acknowledge that gray area, and it's just quarterback is terrible or quarterback is great after every single game, depending on the result. If you can't acknowledge how this gets to where it got as far as the final result, then you're going to be on this perpetual treadmill of being wrong. You're just going to have a reactionary prisoner of the moment take after every single game. that is going to be proven wrong probably the next week for sure over the course of a longer sample, because you're ignoring the big picture. You're ignoring the resume that Brock Purdy and the 49ers have put on the table. And you're just deciding to live by the whims of the moment, which are obviously going to be powerful in football because it is a chaotic and unpredictable and violent sport. There are guys that are 300 pounds flying around running 4.5 to 4.7 40s, maybe not 4.7s at 300, but Trent Williams does run very, very fast for being that big. But there are bodies flying around. There's car accidents, mini car accidents happening on the field. The football is this oblong shape. It's going to be taking random bounces. And if you are tethered to very short-term results in a game that is built for such inherent chaos, then you were never going to read the long-term correctly. You're never going to see the long-term patterns. And I'm here to show you the long-term patterns, or at least put things into context. Christian McCaffrey had 49 rushing yards the other day, and 48 of those yards came after contact, giving you more perspective on some of the struggles of the 49ers run game. So I'm looking at this. Yeah, he doesn't have a lot of yards before contact per attempt. He's in the I'll show you the chart. This one is not as visually pleasing as far as the colors and everything go, but I think that it is worth putting up on the screen. Again, you want to be in the upper right of a graph like this. You don't want to be in the bottom left. But that's Christian McCaffrey down here. The yards before contact per attempt, one of the lower numbers in the league. Zach Charbonnet not getting a lot of room. Saquon Barkley, Saquon Barkley is in the bottom left of this team. It seems that teams are bottling up Saquon a little bit. And the truth of this always lies on multiple planes. I'm talking about nuance in football. Well, there's a lot of nuance right here. The truth of this always seems to be rooted in the fact that defenses are going to be playing guys like Christian and Saquon and the Eagles and the 49ers run game more aggressively. That just makes sense. You don't want to let those teams beat you on the ground, because then you've completely capitulated. But on top of that, the blocking apparatus of both of those teams also can be struggling in a way. I don't know. I haven't watched a lot of Eagles tape this year, so I'm not going to talk about that. But I do know that the 49ers, without George Kittle and without the explosive pass play support that they've typically gotten in the past, have not played at the standard that they have in previous seasons. And I think that that's self-explanatory. I think that returning guys like George Kittle, especially him, is going to help the 49ers. I don't think there's anything wrong with Christian McCaffrey or Saquon Barkley. I think that Christian is showing that he still has the juice necessary to get this done based on what he has showed us on some of his spectacular plays already this year. He's number 3 in the NFL in yards from scrimmage. He's just delivering in the receiving game instead of the pass game because of the troublesome dynamics that the 49ers have faced. The shovel pass that Christian McCaffrey took for a touchdown was vintage CMC the other day. You could tell this guy is still in his prime physically. Like that type of play against that defense, the power that he showed on top of the agility and the burst and the movement at that red zone box, right? I mean, he was in that 10-yard box in the red zone. That truly was impressive. That was somebody making something out of nothing. And it's going to be very exciting for the 49ers once Christian McCaffrey is able to put that behind a stronger blocking apparatus for the 49ers. All right, let's take a look at some of your questions to the top of the show. Brock Purdy, Ricky Pearsall will both be questionable for the 49ers game against the Rams. This is going to be a challenge for San Francisco. Why don't we talk about the Rams a little bit? And, the fact they're playing top 5 defense right now. They picked off Daniel Jones twice in this game. They won that turnover battle against the Colts, who were previously unbeaten, the 3-0 Colts team. Puka Nacua went for 170. Devontae Adams is now on this football team. I think he was dealing with a little bit of a hamstring issue, but he should be good to go. on Thursday against the 49ers. So you've got at least two very, very dangerous receivers for the Rams. Matthew Stafford is obviously a dangerous quarterback, although I will say right now that Stafford has typically put the ball in harm's way against the 49ers. That has been a thing time and time again for Matthew Stafford, including last year. When was it? Was it week 14? I think it was last year, maybe week 15 last year, December game against the Rams, the one where Devondre Campbell walked off the field. Stafford threw 3 footballs that should have been interceptions in the first half. And the 49ers dropped all 3 of them. The 49ers don't have a pick since last November against the Seahawks. Isaac Yiadom, he isn't even on the team anymore. He's back with the Saints. So that's just one thing that you'll always seem to get from Matthew Stafford, and that is football's put in harm's way. He's got a really strong arm. Sometimes maybe trust that arm a little bit too much, and he'll throw balls that can be picked. And the 49ers have not caught balls that should be picked for nearly a calendar year. And that has to change. Fred Warner had 2 opportunities. They weren't lock opportunities against Jacksonville, but they were really good opportunities. He wasn't able to grab the football. And this time, I think the 49ers are going to need a couple plays to really break in their direction because they're underdogs in this game. The Rams are generally healthy. They are balanced, both offensively and as an entire football team. The 49ers are not generally healthy. They might be down to Mac Jones at the quarterback position, which would make this even harder for San Francisco if they're having to play their backup quarterback. They may be down Ricky Pearsall. Jawan Jennings might be beat up. They're already down Brandon Ayuk. Of course, George Kittle's not there. Nick Bosa's not there. I mean, there's a reason the Rams are favored by about a touchdown in this game. But last year, I will tell you that week 3 in LA, the Rams were overmatched in probably a similar way to how the 49ers seem to be overmatched right now. They had a beaten up offensive line. The defense for the Rams was like the number 30 defense in the league for the first 3 months last year. And it was a young defense. This just wasn't a good unit for the Rams. And the 49ers had a generally healthy offense outside of Christian McCaffrey being out. And the Rams still found a way to beat the 49ers. It took that Jake Moody miss late in the game from 50-plus yards. It took Brandon Ayuk drop. I still remember critical Brandon Ayuk drop in the first half. It took a defensive meltdown from the 49ers late in that game. They just really ran out of gas. I remember Tutu Atwell caught a big pass far downfield. I mean, it was a bad loss for the 49ers. But my point is that they had a distinct advantage roster-wise going into that game, and the Rams in a divisional matchup still found a way to beat them. And that's what the 49ers have to repay this weekend. If it's entirely possible that they can get a win. It might not be likely, but this is a divisional game, and we've seen the Rams execute the opposite blueprint. Hell, we've seen the 49ers go in there against the superior Rams team and win as well. I think about 2020. Nick Mullins was San Francisco's quarterback. Now, that was back in the Jared Goff era for the Rams. But LA had a solid team in 2020, and the 49ers still beat them twice, including once at SoFi, where they just ground out a tough division win. That's what they have to do this time. Grind out a tough division win, and it's probably going to take, I mentioned it yesterday, the hockey term is a couple dirty goals, something that's not very clean, but you still get a little lucky, combine luck and skill, and that's when you get good results. Well, that's what the 49ers might have to do defensively. Take care of the football on offense, run the football as well as you possibly can without George Kittle. Whether it's Purdy or Mac Jones, stay efficient, take the layups, earn a profit on a down-in, down-out basis. Take the profit. Don't force that ball downfield. Keep that defense off the field if you're the 49ers. Play with a very restrained game plan. And if Devontae Adams and Puka Nacua and Matthew Stafford are on the sideline for the Rams, you're doing a good job. Play special teams to at least a draw, but maybe even get a couple dirty special teams expected points in your favor. and go out there and take your chances in the fourth quarter if you're in that game in a divisional matchup. That's what the 49ers have to do on Thursday night in LA. John Lynch today, I mentioned, he said 50 players came in for body maintenance on Monday. Talked about the uncharacteristic things that happened on Sunday. 49ers are a little energized by the fact that they still had a chance to win that game. They only lost by 5 despite being -4 in turnover margin. As I mentioned, they outscored and outgained Jacksonville on offense and defense despite being -4 in takeaway giveaway. Special teams, the returns, literally the 87-yard punt return was the difference in this football game. Lynch also noted that Trevor Lawrence, there's been a lot of talk about the 49ers not delivering any hits on Lawrence, which you need to do. But Lawrence is also getting rid of the ball very quickly. I mentioned this the other day, and Lynch repeated it. 2.63 seconds from snap to release. They had an RPO, quick game plan. They ran the football effectively. I think that the Rams are going to be a little bit different. They're going to let stuff develop downfield because of how well Nakua is playing, how well Devontae Adams is playing. Every time I say Nakua, I want to say Cooper Kupp as well, but he's on the Seahawks now. So this is going to be more of a drop back game for Matthew Stafford and company. So the 49ers defensive line will have a chance time-wise to get to the quarterback. Whether or not they do that remains to be seen. But I think that we're going to get a much better gauge of the 49ers pass rush without Nick Bosa this time around than we did on Sunday against Jacksonville. And keep in mind that the 49ers defense was much better in the second half against Jacksonville than they were in the first half of that game. This is more data right now. Just wait for this one. This is good. Mike is feeding me today. I'm eating today with all this cool data. Throws deep over the middle. This is where the 49ers and Brock Purdy especially make a lot of their money. Look how many times they try to attack the middle of the field. Now, they haven't been as productive there as they would like to be, but they're certainly hammering that part of the field. I think that they don't have the same separation ability that they will later in the season when theoretically they get a guy like Brandon Ayuk back, when that receiving core is a little bit more healthy. And because of that, they really are trying to hammer the width of the field. It's 53 yards wide, so they want to try to set up as much after the catch ability to try to stretch the defense formationally, but then attack that softer area in the middle. If you're the 49ers, you need to see their logo move further to the right of this chart. And that against Jacksonville, they put up their highest explosive passing rate of the season. They were at a 12 or 13% explosive play rate in general against Jacksonville. It was the first time they were above average all season long. Again, it has to be paired with better control of the football. Can't be turning the ball over. But if you're efficient and explosive, you're going to compromise defenses. You're going to force them to start dedicating more resources to the pass game, which should open up some of your run game. All right, everybody, thanks for watching. It has been a fun morning. Wanted to go 40 minutes. We did. I'll be headed down to the facility. More updates on Purdy, Pearsall, and everybody else very soon. It is Tuesday, but we're going to act like it's Wednesday and Thursday in this condensed week. We'll see you soon.